Welcome to the Parts Party. I'm Adriana.
And I'm Ella.
And this is your invitation to hang out with us and our beautiful guests as we explore the lived experience of internal family systems. We want to share in our common humanity as humans who have multiple parts within us, so we can show you what it really is to honour this model of therapy in our own lives. This is a place for IFS nerds, therapists, enthusiasts, or just anyone who wants to get to know their parts and their self a little better.
So grab a soft drink for your little ones, a tea for your manager parts, and maybe something fancy for your firefighter parts. Because all parts are welcome.
Welcome, Argnesh. It's so wonderful to have you here. So you are an individual and couples therapist, and you work at Healing from the Heart with internal family systems therapy. And I think we're both really looking forward to getting to know you and your experience of IFS better. So to start, I'm wondering if you want to introduce yourself a bit, both professionally and personally.
Yes, so I transitioned from bodywork, from Bowen therapy to IFS, and mainly because I've always felt that the body has so much information and so much comes up. And then how do I catch it? How am I, even at the time it was trauma informed, wasn't even a buzzword, but there was a sense that people do come up with stuff when they get a session, and I wanted to be able to hold it. So that was one reason, and I was looking for the right fit to what to do. And a friend gave me Richard Schwartz's book, like the actual teaching manual. And as most people, as soon as they kind of see the part stuff, my system was like, this makes so much sense. Mm-hmm. And so I started quite slowly, which was very intentional. I didn't want to jump into level one. When I did level one, it was like they were looking for people rather than queuing up for years. So I did the online circle, and listened to it 100 times. Not 100, I'm exaggerating. And signed up for a little intro course with Simon that was going online, and did little courses. And I went on I think I was the third in-person IFS with Anna, level one, in 2000, I think it was 18. Yeah. So that's kind of how it happened. And then I love learning. So I did a lot of courses, a lot of life architect, and anything that kind of interests me. I would jump in and do. And I take practice very seriously, like two things: to have my own therapy and to have really good supervision. That's been really important to me, both things. To really feel it from the inside, I think it's probably as important for me as getting information and learning. Yeah.
How was it when you first started to notice parts of you? How did that happen for you, Argnesh?
Oh, I was hoping that you asked that because it was quite funny. So I think most people have this experience when they start with IFS. It makes a lot of sense. And my experience was that it was like a manager. And, they call them like self-like parts, but those parts don't like that name. So, this part was like trying to manage all these parts in distress and polarized. So I actually distinctly remember going for a walk, and from this part of me trying to manage, like basically talk down polarized parts. Mm-hmm. And it was literally like Jack in the Box. Like I push one down into the box, or this part of me would push one down. It's like, oh God, I did it. And then push that one down that was having a go at it. And there is some calm. And then something else jumps out. So it was like, and then also there was a sense of disorientation first. It's like, who am I? Mm. I don't know if you guys had that moment, but I definitely had it. It's like this misunderstanding that self is everything and parts are just kind of like just parts.
Mm.
So as I got to know different parts of me, the initial experience was actually like positive and then really disorienting because it's like, who am I?
Mm.
I am just parts. I don't have any self energy, all that. And I think a lot of people go through that.
Yeah, it's such an important experience to bring up. There can be some confusion around this idea of self. We go, okay, we have this self, then that must mean parts aren't me. But then what does that make me if I don't feel self? And if I'm feeling these parts, there can be this disorientation as you described, or some confusion. I'm wondering what helped you get through that period of disorientation and start to get a bit more of a sense of cohesion or integration in your system.
Honestly, therapy really,
Mm,
like that's when it really started, like having someone else there
mm,
to hold space.
mm,
It was really, really difficult to do it on my own at the very beginning.
mm,
And I remember practicing and practice, peer practice, like mapping, people reflecting back. But I personally really needed that other person to hold space, reflect, and get over this kind of, I don't know, like almost like identity crisis that was a point of my IFS journey. Definitely. Yeah.
So I'm sure that you found as well that getting to know our parts often arises from moments that challenge or trigger us. You know, when we come face to face with what IFS calls a trailhead or a tormentor, those people or situations that seem to trigger us or push our buttons. I'm wondering if you've had a trailhead or tormentor that's been significant in your life that you'd maybe want to talk about.
Sure. I mean, hundreds, but aren't they good? I was kind of thinking when you guys asked, I thought that it was sort of current. So I'm going to share something that is really up for me at the moment. So just a little bit about my journey, like interpersonal journey with people that for a long time in my life, probably 20s, 30s, I was really led by parts that were, again, they don't like the terminology. So typically they are called people pleasing parts. So like really leaning in and trying to be a person, a good person and do the right thing and fit into places where there was actually no comfort, but like really trying hard, like really trying parts. And COVID really gave me a circuit breaker.
Mm,
And I think I'm not the only one. Like most of us, whether it was a good circuit breaker, personally, I loved it. My nervous system was like, no social obligations. Oh my God, this is heaven.
mm,
And it actually gave me an opportunity to really look at who I am and those parts that were trying so hard to fit in. Having a break was awesome. And then coming out of it, actually, parts decided that I don't need to go back to that way of being.
mm,
So it was really cleaning up stuff like friendships and too much stepping back, actually. So there was a period of like, no, not that, not that, not this, not that. And I'm happy at home, working and online community. And then it came to a point where I realized, like my system realized I need connection, like in-person connection.
mm,
And also realized that I'm neurodivergent. And because what happened with my IFS journey was that it came to, lots of healing, but some things never changed. Like there was a part of me hoping that if I have enough therapy, I will really love going to restaurants and I will really love like big gatherings. And there was like, what's wrong with me? And there's some things that I really struggled with. They actually got stronger, not weaker.
mm,
And the reason was because I actually, as those people-pleasing parts step back, I was more myself and I was more aware of the discomfort and the tolerance that wasn't parts-led. It wasn't a burden. It was actually just my neurotype, noise sensitivity, and stuff like that. And it was really, really hard to integrate that. So I actually worked with Sarah Barenberg, who she's a autistic IFS practitioner.
Yes, I've heard her talk. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so where I'm at with it now, so that was a bit of a long-winded intro to this, but it is really an important piece of my current challenge, is as I'm entering back to in-person trainings, going away and doing more stuff and interacting with people, friendships, like how do I form friendships from this place? That threshold of being me and being in the world, that's one thing. But also like what my parts are really looking at, what is friendship? What is the most important thing? Like this is actually what's really alive for me, like how to repair what's important. What is the most important parts of that for me to be with other humans. So it's not parts led, which is walking away from people because they don't 100% fit, or leaning in and not speaking. Am I making sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just really struck by that surprise. Like we think, oh, we'll do all this therapy and then life will look a certain way, but it's not always like that when the parts make sort of space that actually, you don't know what it's going to happen then.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious. I know when I listened to Sarah, I was struck that she said uh, all her parts are autistic and her self energy is autistic. And I don't know if you want to comment on your system in that way, if you'd feel comfortable of how that lands for you.
You know, when I heard her say that, it was such a relief for my system. I cried. And I had some therapy with Sarah, and I would just sit there and cry just from being with her because I just felt so like I don't have to try. And I think for me, self energy being autistic or neurodivergent means that those sensitivities are not burden led. And my whole system has those sensitivities. They are like, I need glasses. And it's the equivalent of if I didn't know that glasses were available. And I was told that the reason why you guys are blurry without my glasses, it's because I have trauma and I need to deal with my trauma and then I can see well. And this is what I've done to myself, like my parts done to me all these years of chasing a version of me that doesn't exist. So to me, saying that my self energy is neurodivergent is it's radical self acceptance, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And what you were describing just before of this current trailhead, engaging with it in this new way through this lens of radical self-acceptance, it's going, I don't have to do this people-pleasing thing that this part maybe used to do in the past. But what does friendship look like? What are the values inside that I respond to? Yeah. I'm curious, when we work with clients, some see their parts, some hear them, some sense them somatically, some talk to them. I'm curious how you interact or engage with your parts when you work with them.
So that's a really interesting journey too, because I remember back many, many years ago when I first started IFS therapy, and it was really visual and kind of amazing kind of stories and visual experiences. And it wasn't as somatic, but I think the next layer for me, as I got deeper and deeper and deeper, it's incredibly somatic. So I really feel parts very much in my body. But I think that's just kind of a deeper layer of the same journey, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's interesting when I reflect on that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's this sense of before I could see them visually, and then somehow as I've deepened my connection to them, I can really feel them somatically, or it's part of that same journey as you said, but there's this deeper connection to them.
I think it's also got to do with uh, I have a lot of pre-verbal trauma, like attachment trauma.
Mm.
And initially, when I was working more or getting to know, protectors,
Mm-hmm.
and it came in like very symbolic, like symbolic images. And I love doing scent play, like at the beginning. And then I had a whole heap of little toys that I collected that like symbolized my parts
Beautiful.
and really working with them. And it was really important for me to externalize for a while. And yeah, it's kind of less important now.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, because there's no right way to experience parts, and different parts can show up in different ways, of course. So, yeah, it can evolve and shift.
Yeah.
So, Agnes, you provided a gorgeous meditation for us to upload separately for our listeners. So, thank you so much for that. We both had a listen and loved it. The meditation invites connection to self energy, and we'd love you to share a bit with us about how you make sense of or describe self or self energy.
Yeah, that's a really good question too. And of course, for me, like they talk about, there is a variable amount of availability or connection. And that's really important for me again, because at the very beginning, I thought, oh, being in self, like actually even remember in our level 1, we did this exercise about I am in self. And that kind of doesn't resonate with me. So I know I have access to self energy if I am relational. To me, that's actually the biggest sign. If I am aware of me, but I'm also aware of you.
Mm.
If I lose that sense of ability to track kind of that I'm here and you are there, and I lose my sense of connection and curiosity to the other person, I know I'm totally blended.
Mm.
When I did that meditation, actually, for whatever reason, I really fell into this connection with self energy. And it feels awesome. It's like really alive, light, heart. Um, yeah,
Hard to talk about, isn't it? It's hard to put words to something like that, but I could really feel that coming through in the meditation.
yeah. So for me, it's really about my ability to connect to others and have positive regard for other people. If I lose that, if I have even a little bit, like if I am polarized with somebody, like if I have issues with a person and I can have some positive regard, I know I have some access to self energy. If I blended with someone who sees them as a bad person, I know I've totally blended.
Love that. That's quite practical little
Mm.
barometer to sort of gauge, isn't it?
Yeah. And then of course, being in nature and feeling really, really super connected and in awe of everything and just having this back and forth. Truthfully, for me, it's always about connectivity.
Mm.
So it's always the back and forth. That's what I check. Even when I work with clients, it's like, hang on a minute, am I really holding the entirety of this person
Mm.
and myself? And also sitting back, maybe like I feel my back.
Mm.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing.
Yeah. And when you describe I can tell if I'm in that self energy, if I feel like I can be in relationship to others. I'm imagining, does that extend to yourself and your parts? It's like I can be in relationship with my parts rather than them either taking over or me feeling a certain way towards them.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And actually what I find really helpful, even when I'm having a hard time, interestingly enough, is the Centaur IFS companion app.
Yeah.
Even though she names it as coach, like your inner coach, not as self energy, but she starts off with in the meditation, the check-in is like, do you have any availability, even a drop to some curiosity or calm or compassion?
Mm.
And that really helps me find it.
Mm. I agree. I loved that piece of even if it's just a drop,
Mm.
because sometimes we're sort of expecting this, grand meditative state, compassionate state to take over. That's just not available. But sometimes a drop is available, and sinking into that, more becomes available.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And also, I remember Pam Krause, we did a online workshop with her and self-like parts on Life Architect. And she was talking about that if we were totally in self-energy, we actually couldn't talk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like we need our parts. We need all the information and the ability to do. If we were totally in self-energy, we would be just like this, sitting in wonder, in oneness, but we wouldn't be functional.
Exactly. In the pilot, I shared an example of this Indian saint. Her name was Ma Ananda Mai Ma, and she would go into full self experience or ecstasy, but her disciples had to, bring her sips of water, spoon feed her, carry her around because she was just in the, however you'd call it, in the bliss of pure self. So I love that Pam said that as well. Yeah.
Other way actually that I can access self energy is what feels good. That the pathway of like what is nice to look at, what is sensory nice, what, you know, smelling something, looking at something, what is pleasing, what gives me pleasure.
Mm.
That's a really good pathway for me also.
Mm.
Yeah.
What do you find happens in those moments when you do that?
So when I can really open to something I like to look at, there is a painting that got really nice colors. My nervous system relaxes and my parts, I guess, relax. They kind of like settle and I feel more connected to myself. Yeah.
Connection, as you said before, it's such an important word, especially for you. There's this sense of if I can stay in connection and if I can even connect to one thing, what I'm hearing is that it increases my capacity to then be in connection with myself, with everything around me. The whole nervous system settles.
Yeah. And the other thing, what motivated me to do that meditation, which I really got from Paul Newstead in a workshop, is that parts have self energy.
Yeah.
And they have wisdom. Like he had this process where even before the parts were unblended or unburdened, in their state of distress, he would ask them, is there some wisdom? I know you have some wisdom here. You know something that maybe the rest of the system doesn't know. And that got the parts in touch with their self energy, to giving them that sort of respect, I guess.
Yeah, it's such an important point, and I think one that, especially for people when they first come to IFS and they start to go, oh, I have parts and self, and that disorientation that you were talking about before, when it's something that kind of grounds you back in, you go, oh, parts have self. They have self energy too, because they're all parts are an aspect of self. So of course there's self. And we just kind of forget that because they're kind of covered over by a burden or some pain or, whatever it is, a job that they have to do. But there's wisdom in there, like you said. I have a little nerdy part who likes to prepare before podcasts. And so I actually did some research before this and was reading some of your posts on your professional Facebook page that really ties into what you were just talking about. So I really liked your observation about how when we're at our lowest or we're struggling with big emotions, that's when we often find it hardest to let any love in or connect to anything good. And you linked this so insightfully, I think, to this belief that if I feel bad, that means I am bad or this part of me must be bad.
Mm.
And there's kind of this spiritual bypass that we can often engage with, which is we want to embrace and go towards the good parts of ourselves and reject those hurt parts altogether as though they're ego or bad. But it's what you shared is a really beautiful illustration of Dick's concept of there's no bad parts,
Mm.
because as you spoke about in these posts, even if some parts feel bad or we struggle with them, they are all parts of us. They are parts of the self and they're not going anywhere.
Mm.
And when we learn to accept and embrace them, we actually find every single part holds gifts and truth and wisdom inside them, like you said, that helps us become more whole. And you said this beautiful line that I'm going to read back to you, which is when we befriend disowned parts of ourselves, we may find what we want to become, we already are.
Mm.
Something about that just really, really resonated with me. And I'm wondering, yeah, if you wanted to speak to what brought you to those insights in your own journey, or even just what it's like to hear me reflect your own words back to you.
Thank you. That was really beautiful to hear it back. And it goes back, I guess, to those parts of me. Maybe I kind of didn't put it together, but circling back to those parts of me that were trying so hard to be something.
Yeah.
And then actually, if I'm relaxed and hold safe, the sensitivities I have, like take care of my tender parts and my exiles that maybe are special need in some ways. We all have those in different ways. It's not just neurodivergency, but
Mm.
if they know that I can take care of them and the protectors know that they don't have to work so hard, I can become exactly that person that they work so hard to like pretend almost.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's actually really touches me. Thank you so much for reading that. Like, it makes me want to cry. If it's okay, I'd like to just take a moment to really sit with that because you really gifted me with something, in
Mm.
yeah. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. And I guess that's the most important thing for me about anything I said before about self energy, this real knowing that all my parts have self energy
Mm. Mm.
and have this inner light. And even if they don't believe they do,
Mm.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something just clicked for me of before when you were talking about this being able to be in relation, but you also described it as when I can sit back in my chair. And it's almost like I don't have to lean forward and convince you of this. I know
Mm.
that you have self in you. I don't have to do anything. I can sit here and I can be with you as you are.
Mm.
There's something about that willingness to engage, but from this place of just knowing, as you said. You can relax, you can settle into it, you can ground into it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Of even with clients to hold this knowing.
Mm.
And I'm really kind of stretching into holding that field actually more than, it's almost more important than the words.
Mm. Yeah.
If I can really stretch, like make as much space for their parts as they are, as they need.
Mm.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of trust in the system to be able to do that for all our good therapist parts, to just make space so that we can actually really just be.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not always possible, and we all have our trailhead clients, and you know what I really try to do there is invite my clients to be part detectors, to really offer that if you notice anything that doesn't feel right, because that in itself is a repair for a lot of people, to be able to safely speak up. And I'm very, very good at repair. And I have had to do that, meaning that to like take feedback.
Yeah.
And I think that's also what's important for me in connection. Yeah. So yeah, circling back to the trailhead, I think that's what I'm like really starting to realize, that one of the things that is important to me in relationships, and what I would be curious about, is like how are you in conflict? And then how do you repair? What's your capacity to repair?
Been one of the biggest gifts of IFS for my system is, previous to IFS, if I got feedback from a client, I would try and be gracious, but I'd have all these parts popping off that I didn't know were parts, and probably come off defensive, even if I was doing my best not to be. Since really working deeply with my parts, they can make space when there is feedback that's uncomfortable for them. And it makes such a difference in how that lands for people when you can get unblended and name parts, and powerful stuff.
Yeah, it's so much less burnout from it, because parts don't have to work so hard to do things to people or with people or for people. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And just that inner looking after, like I know if I get feedback that's not positive, there's a part that feels like I'm in trouble, I'm caught, and well, I'm going to look after you, just wait till after the session and I'll be with you. So actually that part's not coming into a session with somebody. And children shouldn't be running therapy sessions. So.
Yeah, yeah. Or if it doesn't feel fair. But especially people who have complex trauma, if they pick up on something, like that's my realization, is that if they pick up on something because they got these hypersensitive parts, basically.
Yeah.
And every single time people pulled me up, it was always spot on when I really gave it a bit of time to sit with. And it's such a gift. It's such an opportunity to really find blind spots. So much better than if people say all the right things and go along with, whatever, and then never come back.
Yeah, as you said before, it's really gifting safety to them to engage in repair, to be able to give feedback, know that it's safe to give feedback.
But also a gift to us.
Yeah.
For me, like when I take that to supervision, there's only a couple of clients that it happened with, actually, but because they both have really complex trauma, it's not just once, like they have very finely tuned parts, and they are like my tormentor clients, but
Yeah, absolutely.
amazing. Like, honestly, it's such a gift.
Yeah, it's beautiful when our perspective can shift as humans to view trailheads and tormentors as gifts and opportunities for you to go inward and be friends with parts of you that you maybe weren't aware were taking over in that moment, or just inhibiting that connection, or just for some reason felt necessary to be present in that moment. You can start to engage with them and be curious, why were you showing up just now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
It no longer feels like a threat for us to have these things pointed out or triggered or come up. We can go, okay, you're here. But of course, we're human, so sometimes it can still feel triggering.
Oh, yeah.
when
No,
that
look, every
happens.
time. I mean, and there is never, ever that there is not a part of me going, come on, not again. So Of course, there is parts that are protectors that will pop up and have their say, and it's like, but it's not me, it's you. You know, one of my trailheads with clients is when like parts that really protest, and a part of me feels like they're critical of their partner. And it was such a good thing to really unpack that and look at what's going on for me, and what this is about, and how young that part of me is that just wants them to be nice. You know, it's incredible gift.
Such a different way of being, and being a therapist and being a human, of not getting polarized with our clients' parts, but really having that different perspective.
Yeah.
Argnesh, it's been an absolute delight to hear about you and your system. Before we finish, did you want to share anything else about being a system of parts and self? Is there anything unsaid?
Really, really, it's such a good way of being with people too, and repair. You know, it's such a gift to know that this part of me that is angry at a part of you. It's not all of you, you know. Even in that perspective, actually, that's how I know I have self energy too. If I can kind of track that this is not a bad person, it's just a part that is, you know, doing something that is upsetting.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And did you have a quote or something you're happy to share to finish up?
Yes, this is actually not from it's focusing. I don't know if you guys heard of focusing.
Yeah.
From Eugene Gendling, I think, or Jendling. Not sure how to say his surname. Every bad feeling is a potential energy toward a more right way of being if you give it space to move towards its rightness. And in IFS language, it's like every burden is a potential energy. Every burden is holding potential energy toward its own healing. If we give it space to move towards its rightness. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for gifting us with a bit of your story. And
yeah, thank you for being here and sharing with us. I'm so grateful for this
Thank
time.
you. Thank you.
thank you for being part of the Parts Party with Adriana and Ella. We hope you enjoyed being with us, and we wish you many moments of self-leadership. We'd love your support by liking and subscribing, and we hope to see you next time.